The ability to become invisible and move like a shadow in the forest is something that people have been telling stories about for thousands of years all around the world. But if you've ever actually tried walking silently through crusty leaf litter in the forest, you know that being invisible in these conditions can be extremely challenging. So what if there was a way to bypass the challenge of being completely silent and actually get to advanced levels of invisibility in the forest simply by being more strategic? And that's what we're going to explore today. So when I was younger, I spent a lot of time practicing the physical skills of invisibility. This is things like blindfolding and balancing exercises that get you to slow down and gradually increase the sensitivity of your feeling, hearing, and seeing senses. So you can learn to take steps and move your body through the forest in a way that makes a lot less noise and draws a lot less attention to yourself, even in the driest leaf litter. And this includes things like camouflage and timing your movements to hide any noise you make within the background sound of the forest, like wind and animal sounds. It takes practice and dedication, but with a focused effort, you can get pretty good at moving very quietly and invisibly through some very challenging terrain. One of my favorite memories of this was a time when I was able to sneak up to almost touching distance of a family of raccoons, and the terrain I had to move through was so challenging that it took like 10-15 minutes of focused concentration just to move 10 feet through this big pile of sticks. And I got to watch these little raccoons play fighting and tumbling right in front of me, and they had no idea that I was even there. So it's amazing what you can do with the physical skills of invisibility, but the downside is that it can be very slow. Sneaking through a hazardous woodpile while staying completely silent typically means that you're taking a long time just to move a few feet of distance. So there's another really important thing about invisibility that isn't just a physical skill, and it really has more to do with the overall strategy that you're using to move around the forest. And if you know how to apply the strategy, this can make up for a total lack of the physical skills, meaning you don't need to be completely silent, you don't need to be wearing awesome camouflage, and it enables you to cover much longer distances in the forest much more quickly and efficiently while staying completely hidden and unseen. So let me show you what that looks like. So right now, I am standing in the middle of a deer trail. And to someone who's never walked an animal trail, you might just think that I'm standing in the middle of the forest. But if we look that way, just on the other side of those bushes is the main human trail. And this deer trail runs generally parallel to the main trail. It's a trail that deer use when they don't want to be seen by people. Even just wearing what I have on right now, if someone were to start walking up that trail, all I have to do is crouch down. And there is basically zero chance of them seeing me, finding any trace or sign of me. For all practical purposes, I am invisible to that person. And this works regardless of how skilled you are at being completely silent. The great thing about these deer trails is that over time, with all that hoof traffic, they start to get cleared of a lot of the really noisy debris, which makes it so much easier to stay silent and still cover some territory while staying completely hidden. The other thing is that animals typically aren't expecting to see people using their trails. So if you just have a base level of quietness as you move around, it also becomes much easier to see animals. So the big lesson in all of this is that if you want to get to the highest levels of invisibility as quickly as possible, you need to be practicing both the physical skills and the strategic skills together. You might just start by doing some basic scouting walks all around the forest and look for key areas where you get large mammal trails intersecting with the human trails. Even if you have a fairly large forest to work with, there might just be a few key locations where these trails intersect in a really obvious way. When you find these places, the next step is to actually get on that trail, and this is where you start practicing your physical skills. So you want to make sure when you're walking in the forest that you don't look down at your feet. You want to make sure that your eyes are focused outward into the forest landscape and actively sensing for movement of animals like deer out in the distance. If you need to look down at the ground to decide your next few steps on the trail, just make sure you stop moving first. Look at what you need to see, but then always redirect your attention outward again before you take that next step. The next thing is to really pay attention to the noise that you are making and start to adjust how fast you move to actively reduce that noise by moving slower and more consciously. You need to be quiet enough that you can hear things like birds and squirrels and frogs and any other sounds like wind off in the distance of the forest. And if you're making a lot of your own noise, that will really interfere with how far you're able to hear. But the biggest secret to learning invisibility in the forest is whenever you see animals, you want to challenge yourself to see how close can you get without affecting that animal's behavior. Always doing this in a respectful way, meaning if you sense that an animal is stressed by something that you're doing, you want to leave them alone, but just keep testing yourself with living feedback, and those animals will become better teachers of invisibility than any book or video could ever teach you. Every time you practice these 4 steps, you learn to move a little more silently, and you learn to move around your forest using the network of sneak trails that animals depend on every day for their survival. So the question you might be asking now is, how do you actually find these animal trails and start to see them in your own forest? And that is a question we're going to explore in another video on deer trails and how to find them in your area. So if you want to keep learning, go check out that video and I'll show you some really cool things I've learned about finding and seeing animal trails. And if I haven't posted that video yet, I'll link to one of my other videos here. And in the meantime, go ahead and subscribe so you can see that deer trail video when it gets published.